Alright, what's going on everyone? I'm SomeDevNamedSteve and welcome to the first Let's Make on this channel. So, what I'm going to be doing for this Let's Make is that I'm going to be showing how to make a very basic game. I'm going to be showing things about Unity game objects and going to show how to manipulate them by moving them, scaling them, rotating them, and adding color to them. And I'm also going to be showing how to do some basic coding for collisions, for movement, and also for how to do things on certain events. Alright, let's get started. So obviously this is using the Unity game engine. And if you don't have it already, I'll put a link in the description down below. But if you do have it, we can automatically get started. Before I do get started with actually creating things, I just wanted to explain the layout a little bit, because it is a little much when you very first look at it. But once you start getting used to it, it does become pretty natural. So here's a very quick introduction. What I have here is called a layout, and this is the default layout. So any time you open this up for the first time, you're going to have this layout. If you don't have this layout and you want to follow along exactly with how I'm doing it, just go to the upper right hand corner here. You're gonna click layout, and then you're going to see different kinds. You're gonna see 2x3, 4 split, default, tall and wide. I'm just going to be doing default, as I said, so just click on that. Unity will reapply that, and then you'll have your default layout here. Even though the layouts are different, you always have the same general panels when you open up Unity. So, for example, you have this one here, which I personally like to call the prototyping or the visual prototyping panel, which contains your scene here, which is where you can place any kind of game object. And then also you have your game tab, which this will show what everything looks like in game with respect to the main camera, which is right here. The next object that I have is the inspector. What the inspector does is that shows every single feature from within a certain game object. So just as an example, I'm going to go over here and click on main camera, and as you can see, it has a name right here. It has a tag, layer. We're going to get to tags in a later video. It has a transform, which is a position, a rotation, and a scale. It just shows where is the camera for position, how much is it rotated, and then the scale, which is how long is it on a respective side. And then obviously, since it is a camera, it has a camera component. So that means it's going to be able to see things such as what is it seeing, how much can it see. And then down here we have the project and console tabs. What these allow for are organizations for showing where your objects are, and then also debugging. So for example, if I click on the console tab here, this is where you can do a lot of debugging. So if you just want to make sure that there's a certain collision going on, or that something is being recognized like a controller, you can do that automatically. And then in our project tab, we have our files in here, or where we are going to be able to put files. So let's say that I just decide to make a folder in here. So if you want to make a folder in here, you could just right click in here, create a folder. Let's see, I know I'm going to need a folder for the script, so I'm going to type scripts. And as you can see, it's here in Unity, but it's not just in Unity, it's also within the file path of your computer. So if I go to File Explorer here, I'm going to click on Google Drive right up here. I'm going to click on Unity Projects, and then I'm going to click on Hello Unity. I'm going to click on Assets, and then there's the scripts folder right there. So when you create it in Unity, it automatically creates it within your computer as well. And finally, we have the Hierarchy tab. What the Hierarchy tab does is that it shows everything within the scene in terms of a game object or a prefab of some sort. I'll get into what a prefab is later on in this video. So for example, if I know that there are a million game objects and prefabs, those will all be shown in the hierarchy right here. And even though you may not be able to see them all here, they will be shown in here somehow. And then if you double click on it, you're able to automatically lock onto that object. One last thing just to get into Unity is the controls to move around. So let's just say I wanted to pan up, down, left, and right. What I would do is I will hold down the middle mouse button. So I'll hold down the scroll wheel, and I can move left, move right, move up and down. You have to move the mouse down to move up, and then move the mouse up to move down. And then you move the mouse to the left to look right, and then to look left, you move the mouse to the right. Since we're on the scroll wheel, the next thing I'll show is zooming in and out, or another way to just move through the scene. So what you can do is that you would scroll up to zoom in, and then you would zoom out with the scroll wheel. And the final major mouse control that you can do in Unity is you can rotate from with respect to where you are. So if I wanted to just look behind me, I would hold down the right mouse button. You'll see the eye come up. And then you can just rotate around. And then when you go to the edge of the screen, this applies for panning too. The mouse just appears on the other side of the window. So you can essentially rotate as much as you want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show how to make game objects just to get the ball rolling on this. So what you can do is if I right click here in the hierarchy, and then I'm going to go down to 3D object. Let's say I want to make a cube. Okay, so I'll just make a cube, click on that, and then I have a cube. It'll appear in the center with respect to wherever my view is from the scene. But let's say that I just wanted to move this straight into the center. To move it straight to the center, I could go up here and I can change the position, rotation, and scale values just by inputting. So if I want to input it to 0, 0, 0, I can do it just like that. But let's say that I wanted to move it up and to the left with respect to the camera. So what I would do is I could also see that the camera is facing this way. To make this easier, I'm just going to rotate and then move myself behind the camera just so I can get a rough idea right about there. I'm going to click on the cube again, and I want to move it up and to the left. Up, or essentially also the y-axis, is this green arrow that you see here. So if I wanted to go up, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to move it up. And then if I'm going to move to the left, I can take this, I just move it left. And then the cube is up and to the left with respect to where the camera is, as you can see with the camera preview down here. Also, to get into movement and being able to manipulate game objects, I'm just going to double click on the cube in the hierarchy and it automatically zooms in and centers on it. So what I'm going to do, let's say that I want to move this to the left. I showed you I could move this cube just by using the arrows here, and then also you can use this blue arrow, which is the z-axis going forward and back. And I also showed you that you could do it through just changing the values right in here for x, y, and z. But what you're also able to do is that you're able to just hover over the X. You'll see two arrows, one going to the left and one going to the right at the top of the mouse. With these, what you're able to do is that you're able to change the value ever so slightly this way. So if you wanted to get something exact, you could do it that way, although I would personally just put the value straight in. Now let's say that I wanted to rotate this. So you could rotate it doing the same thing. You could just input the numbers here. So if I wanted this rotated 10 degrees, going forward, and then 90 degrees, or not 90 degrees, 45 degrees with respect to the y-axis of the world. For the z-axis, let's say 32 degrees. So that would be how to rotate it a certain amount just from using these values. Although, what you could also do, if you look in the upper left-hand corner here, you'll have a hand where you're able to pan. And if you have that clicked, you can just pan using the left mouse button. Although I personally just use the middle mouse button. You can also use the arrows here, which is when this is clicked. You can also use the sphere to help rotate it. So if you want to rotate it with respect to how the object is already rotated, you can do so right here. And then there's scale. So you can scale it as much as you want on any axis. So let's just move this back to 1. If I decide to scale this by 3 on the x-axis right here, you're able to do that. You can change the values within here to scale it, or you can just use these right here. So let's just take the scale off this cube and also bring the rotation down to 0, and let's go ahead and center this. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show how to give it a color, because white's kind of a plain thing, although it is what Unity uses a lot just to get everything started, unless you made your own 3D model, in which case you'll use the colors of that 3D model, except for some specific softwares, but I'll be getting into that in much later videos. So to color it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be making something called a material, and I know I'm going to be using different colors here, so I'm just going to right click in the project folder here. I'm going to create another folder called materials, where material isn't necessarily just a color, but it can also be any kind of material for landscaping or anything along those lines. So grass, lava, anything along those lines. So from here I can just double click on the folder, and I'm in the materials folder. So let's just say I want to make a new material. So I'm going to right click in the project. I'm going to create a material, and I'm just going to name it, what do I want to make this? Green. Just a nice green. So what you do is once you make it there, you're going to click, you can just click up here, go to where you see green, and you're able to change what kind of green it is just through here. Although I already kind of know what kind of green I want. So I'm just going to be doing nothing too dark, but I don't want it super light either. I'm just going to do it right in the middle. So you can also change the values by changing the RGBs here. Or you can just put the number straight in, where this is pretty close to what I want. I'm just going to put it more in the middle, 128. So you can put the values in any of those ways. And to put the material on here, I'm going to just click on it, drag, and drop, and that's how you make the material. It's nothing exactly super difficult. I'm just going to move this down with respect to the camera. Let's see, let's say, actually, I'll move it back up to 0, and then I'll scale it by 7 on the X and the Z, and then on the Y, I'll make this a 0.3. So now let's say that this is the main platform of our game. We just have this titled cube, but we can change the name a couple different ways. You can click on it and then just hold that click, or not hold the click, but if you click once and then click again, not necessarily double clicking, you can change the name through here. So I'm just going to call it main platform, and then the name changes up here, so you can change it up here if you want. Now that we have our main platform, we're going to make a couple sub-platforms. So I'm just going to click on assets here to go back to the main window here for a project. And I'm going to make another folder. So I'm going to right click, create folder, and I'm going to call this Prefabs. Now, a prefab is a prefabricated game object, essentially. So it's something that was already made, and you can use it multiple times as needed. And it's pretty simple to create a prefab. So just to start off, I'm going to make one by saying, okay, I'm going to right click here. Let's do another cube. And I'm going to move this cube, let's say, move it over here. Let's see, move it up. And I'm going to make this platform a little smaller. I'm going to make it, hold on, I'm going to make it 3. And then here I'm going to say 0.3 again. And that's going to be a basic platform. So this is the basics of another side platform, if you will. And I want to make about, let's say, 4 of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to change the name. I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to call it sub-platform. Nothing too difficult. And I'm going to give it a different color. Let's say I decide to give a different color, right click, create material. Let's say I decide to make this orange. So what I would do is that I would go here. I'm going to give it a nice orange, probably about that. You can just give a different color to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the prefabs folder that I made. I'm just going to click on this, drag, and drop it in. And then you have your prefab. As you can see, it even has the .prefab file extension. And I can use this as many times as I want. So if I wanted to reuse it, they'll appear in the same place, but I can just drag it in. And it'll have a numbering system. So this is the first one, but then this is the first copy of it, the second copy of it, and the third copy, since I want 4. And let's say that I want this to be super exact with where everything is. So I'm going to move one of the platforms to the positive here. I'm going to move it just a little more. Move one back a bit. And then I'm going to move this one a little more over here. So that's how you would create a prefab. Now, this looks a little crowded. So I'm just going to move the camera back by clicking the blue arrow here and then moving it back. And also it looks kind of flat with respect to the camera. So I'm going to just move it up this way, and then I'm going to rotate the camera a little bit down on the x-axis by 10 degrees, and I'm going to move this back, and I'm going to expand this to 10 and 10, and that looks pretty good just as a very basic starting platform, just to kind of get the ball rolling with Unity. And that's where I'm going to leave this video. So for the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be showing how to do player movement, and I'm going to be showing the setup involved with coding because there is an IDE or a programming environment already included in Unity, but I personally use Visual Studio, and I'm going to show how to get that set up. And for the coding, I'm going to be showing how to create the player, I'm going to show how to move the player, and also how to make the player jump. So thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed already and you like these videos, go ahead and subscribe, because I know I'm going to have a lot more outside of this Let's Make, and I'm going to be doing a bunch of different types of games. So thank you for watching. I'm SomeDevNamedSteve. This is HelloUnity, and I will be seeing you in the next video.